The president of the International Association of Art Critics, Marek Bartelik, is in Istanbul to speak at the Artists International Art Fair that runs until the 20th. He joins us now on Showcase. Hello and welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
First of all, I have to ask, tell us about your journey from civil engineer to art critic.
And how much time do we have?
Well...
No, I'll tell you a brief story. What happened, it was quite a while ago when I was turning 30. And I went to Paris to interview an artist who was about 95. And this was the day of my birthday. And he asked me how I felt. I said, I feel a little bit old. So he looked at me and I thought he would say, obviously, you know, you are joking, you are very young.
Right.
And he didn't say that. He said, actually, you should feel that way. So then I was surprised and I said, what do you mean? He said, it's time for you to choose what you want to do with your life. And at that time, I was a bridge engineer. I worked on Wall Street and, well, for a company on Wall Street. So I went back to New York. And I said, if I want to do what I want to do in my life, it's time to quit civil engineering and to go to art history. So 2 weeks later, I quit my job and I went back to school. I got my degree in art history, and the rest is history, I guess.
The rest is history. That's
right.
A great story. Well, at the moment, what is the International Association of Art Critics that you're the president of at the moment, and what does it actually do?
Well, it's an institution, association that goes back to the 1940s. In 1948, after the Second World War, there was a conversation about establishing associations or organizations that would represent culture internationally. And AICA, the Association of Art Critics, was one of those organizations. So we go back to the 1950s. Originally, we had about 10 members who joined the association, the big countries like the United States, France, Great Britain. But actually, I found out here that Turkey was one of the early members as well, and goes back to 1952, which is quite remarkable. So we have a long history of I guess, being together in a sense. Right. And the association it's an association which represents art critics around the world. At the present, we have 64 chapters practically all over the world, and about 5,000 art critics. So it's a big association. Yeah. Yes, we organize congresses each year. This year we had a fantastic congress in Havana, in Cuba. Next year will be our 50th Congress, and most likely it will be back in Paris because the association is based in Paris, and then we have the national chapters. And the goal is really to promote art criticism as a form of dialogue between the artist and the audience at large. So I think about our association as kind of these mediators who allow people to have contact with art through a conversation, through a discourse, and all kinds of events. We organize congresses, as I mentioned. We organize symposia. We organize panel discussions all around the world. So.
I like that. The critics do work as mediators a little.
Yeah, so, I think it's a way to... you know, sometimes artists are not very vocal. Some of them can be, but not all of them. And that's maybe why they choose to be visual artists and not writers or poets. And I think art sometimes needs a form of dialogue. And dialogue can be visual, but it can be also, you know, we communicate through words. So it can be also through discussing things. And I guess in a way, it's a soft way of translating things, but without being literal. You know, kind of provoking each other to talk about art as a way of seeing things or a way of describing things.
Well, I have to ask you, what are your thoughts on Artists International Art Fair? You'll be speaking within the fair this Saturday in Istanbul.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the fair?
Well, it was. We went there yesterday to get a preview of what this fair is about. It's huge, so
It's huge,
obviously it's very difficult to describe everything in one sentence or even sort of sum up what it is about. One thing which I want to say and which I think is very remarkable about this particular event, that it's very related to the taste of people, in a sense that, you know, it doesn't impose certain aesthetics or certain way of seeing, but it rather sort of gives people what people probably want. And I guess that's the nature of art fairs, that they are supposed to find people who will buy or even look at the work. So in that respect, it was very interesting for me because it gave me a way of seeing how in Istanbul, but I assume in Turkey in general, what people expect from art. And that was illuminating and interesting, yes.
Mm-hmm. Marek Bartelik, great to have you on Showcase. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me here. So.
Thank you.